Assalamu alaikum. What I'd like to do over the next several videos is discuss several of the most common asked questions by non-Muslims. So, compiled, I have the 20 most common asked questions by non-Muslims compiled by Dr. Zakir Naik, who is the founder of the Islamic Research Foundation. So, I've got some notes here. I've got a packet here I want to share with you guys. I'm really excited about it, and inshallah, God willing, this will increase our knowledge and understanding of each other so that we may coexist peacefully on this earth. So, I'll be reading from my notes through most of this. I want to make sure that the information is given to you in the most clear, concise manner, and more importantly, the correct manner. So, what I want to do is just kind of begin with letting you know most Muslims know that Islam is a universal religion meant for all of mankind. God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God the most glorious, is the Lord of the entire universe, and the Muslims have been entrusted with the duty of conveying his message to all of mankind. Most Muslims today have become callous towards this duty. While accepting Islam as the best way of life for ourselves, most of us are unwilling to share this knowledge with those to whom the message has not yet been conveyed. And that's what I want to do here is share with you this knowledge and share with you this information if you are a non-Muslim, and inshallah, God willing, inspire you if you are a Muslim to get involved, to become active in spreading the truth and spreading the message of Islam. Now, the Arabic word dawah means a call or an invitation. In Islamic context, it means to strive for the propagation of Islam. The glorious Quran says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I seek refuge in Allah from Satan the outcast, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, with the name of Allah, most gracious and merciful. The glorious Quran says, Ah, Ah, who is more unjust than those who conceal the testimony they have from Allah? But Allah is not unmindful of what ye do. Quran chapter 2, verse 140. The 20 most common questions in order to convey the message of Islam, dialogue and debate become inevitable. The glorious Quran says, Invite all to the way of thy Lord with wisdom and beautiful preaching, and argue with them in the ways that are best and most gracious. Chapter 16, verse 125. In conveying the message of Islam to non-Muslims, it is usually not sufficient to highlight only the positive nature of Islam. Most non-Muslims are not convinced about the truth of Islam because there are a few questions about Islam at the back of their minds that remain unanswered. They may agree with your contentions about the positive nature of Islam, but in the same breath, they will say, but you are the same Muslims who marry more than one woman. You are the same people who subjugate women by keeping them behind the veil. You are fundamentalists, etc. I personally prefer asking the non-Muslims up front, with their limited knowledge, whether right or wrong, from whichever source it may be, what they feel is wrong in Islam. I encourage them to be very frank and open and convince them that I can take criticism about Islam. So this is what Dr. Zakir Naik says, and if you're a Muslim, if you're familiar with him, you know that he's someone who's very involved in dawah, in spreading the message of Islam. I personally agree with this approach. Many times, we need to express the fact that we can handle the criticism. As a Muslim, and as anyone who is out there who is a Muslim will tell you, if you are a non-Muslim, we deal with this very frequently. Islam is one of the most misunderstood religions in the world. So if you're a non-Muslim, feel free to ask a Muslim questions. Feel free to go to your local Islamic center, go to your local mosque, and ask questions. I promise you, they will be overjoyed that you have taken the time to walk in and ask the questions rather than receiving your information from Sheikh Google or Wikipedia or online sources rather than asking someone who is in Islam, who is living Islam, who it is their job to explain Islam. So, in the past few years of Dawah experience, Dr. Zakir Naik tells us that he has realized there are barely 20 most common questions that a common non-Muslim has regarding Islam. Whenever you ask a non-Muslim, what do you feel is wrong in Islam? He poses 5 or 6 questions, and the questions invariably fall among the 20 most common questions. Now, logical replies can convince the majority. The 20 most common questions about Islam can be answered with reason and logic. A majority of non-Muslims can be convinced with these answers. Now, if a Muslim memorizes or simply remembers these answers, inshallah, God willing, he will be successful, if not in convincing non-Muslims about the complete truth of Islam, then at least in removing misconceptions about Islam and neutralizing the negative thinking about Islam and Muslims that the non-Muslims typically have. A very few non-Muslims may have counter-arguments to these replies for which further information may be required. But again, the whole point here is spreading awareness, spreading understanding, and coexisting in peace. Now, the common misconceptions that arise about Islam in the minds of the majority of non-Muslims are because they are constantly being bombarded with misinformation about Islam. International media is mainly controlled by the Western world, whether it is international satellite channels, radio stations, newspapers, magazines, or books. Recently, the internet has become a very powerful medium of information. Though it is not controlled by anyone, one finds a large amount of virulent propaganda about Islam on the internet. Now, of course, Muslims too are utilizing this tool as we are doing in this right here, okay, to portray the right image of Islam and Muslims, but we are far behind as compared to the propaganda against Islam. And I hope the efforts by the Muslims will increase and continue to be pursued. And that's something that I think we can all agree upon is we really need to just get out and spread the truth, spread what we know, share the knowledge that we have. Whether you're a Muslim recognizing the truth, or you're a non-Muslim who has had these misconceptions removed, and you understand the peaceful nature and the truthful nature about Islam, when you recognize the falsehood being expressed about Islam, stand up and share that information. As we've seen recently in the New York rally, Today I Am Muslim Too, spearheaded by Russell Simmons, someone who is not a Muslim but is an American citizen, just acting in an American way of defending others from what is false accusations. Now, the most common questions about Islam are different in different periods and eras. This set of 20 most common questions is based on present times in India. Decades earlier, the set of questions was different, and decades later, too, the set of questions may change depending upon how Islam is projected by the media. Now, Dr. Zakir Naik has interacted with people in different parts of the world and has found that these 20 most common questions about Islam to be the same everywhere. Now, there are a few questions that discuss vegetarianism, which are a little more specific to the East, but of course, vegan lifestyles and vegetarian lifestyles are increasing in the West as well. But there may be a couple of additional questions depending upon the locale, the surrounding, or culture. For instance, in America, the additional common question is, why does Islam prohibit taking and giving of interest? Now this included among these 20 most common questions, vegetarian food, or certain questions more common to the Indian non-Muslims. For instance, like I said, the vegetarian food. The reason for including such questions is that people of Indian origin are spread throughout the world and constitute about 20%, i.e. 1/5 of the world population. Thus, their questions become common questions asked by non-Muslims throughout the world. There are many non-Muslims who have studied Islam. Most of them have only read books on Islam written by biased critics of Islam. These non-Muslims have an additional set of 20 common misconceptions about Islam. For instance, they claim to have found contradictions in the Quran. They contend that the Quran is unscientific, etc. There is another set of additional replies clearing these 20 misconceptions among non-Muslims who have studied Islam from distorted sources. And these have also given replies to the 20 additional less common questions among non-Muslims in public talks and books on answers to common questions about Islam by non-Muslims who have some knowledge about Islam. So again, like I said, this comes from Dr. Zakir Naik. This was his introduction to these. And the first question that we are going to be discussing, why is a man allowed to have more than one wife in Islam? Why is polygamy allowed in Islam? And God willing, inshallah, I hope you will join me as we discuss that topic.